Hello everyone and welcome to today's presentation. This is Tony Restel from Social Hire, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to be bringing you a presentation to help you go about being more successful in your job search. Some of you on the call I know will be eagerly trying to find a new job right now. Others of you will be looking ahead to later in the year and thinking that you want to successfully change careers then. So really thrilled that we've been able to bring you this great content today, and I'm particularly thrilled that we have joining us today Jeff Herzog. Now, some of you will already know Jeff, or you'll have looked him up on LinkedIn prior to today's call. Jeff is the owner of a recruitment business in New York called FPC, but that is actually a network of franchise recruitment businesses right across the US with offices in most major cities. And so Jeff has a wealth of knowledge and expertise about how the recruitment industry is working today right across the nation, and a wealth of knowledge about how candidates need to be focusing their job search today to be as effective as possible. And some of you will have seen Jeff is the author of this guide, Your Job Search is a Bare Knuckle Fight. And we're really thrilled that he's going to be able to share some of the insights from that guide with you today. So really pleased to have Jeff with us. I'm going to hand over to Jeff now and invite him to spend the next half hour or so running through some ideas that are really going to help power up your job search. And then at the end of the session, we're going to open things up to question and answer. So if there are particular things you would like to see Jeff answer or particular challenges you've been facing, do use that question box and put those questions to Jeff throughout the session, and we'll then be turning our attention to those at the end. But Jeff, are you there?
I am, Tony. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having us on today, and it's been a pleasure working with you over the last year or so in several different capacities, and this is actually the second webinar we've done together, and I appreciate you inviting me on. And to all the folks who've joined us this morning on the webinar, welcome, and happy to have the opportunity to talk to you all. I've done this presentation in many places around the country, mostly live, but we felt like this was a good opportunity to get out to folks that I can't see face to face. You know, Tony gave me a bit of an introduction. I just figure it makes some sense for me to share a little bit about my background and why I felt like it was important for me to come speak with you today. You know, I've been in and around recruitment since 1997, so frighteningly enough, that's almost 20 years in several different capacities as well. I've worked on a recruitment desk. I also spent 7 years working for CareerBuilder.com and a couple of companies that were actually purchased by CareerBuilder. And now I'm back since 2007 as the executive vice president of a company called Fortune Franchise Corporation. As Tony mentioned, we have about 67 offices around the country, but I've gotten the unique opportunity to see recruitment from many different angles. I started in the business of placing people in jobs prior to people having computers on their desk, or at least most people having computers on their desk. And fast forward almost 20 years now, we're in a completely different world. And you know, I wrote this book really for the main reason being that I think that there's some unfortunately weak and misguided information being provided about how to go about searching for a job in today's environment. There are a lot of misconceptions, there are a lot of unfortunate situations, and I wanted to sort of get right to the heart of what I think is the best way to go about getting a job. And quite frankly, in my business, being a recruiter, I liken it to looking for a job as a career. And for most of you, that probably makes you cringe. But the fact is that it positions us in a pretty good spot to be able to share with people what it is they need to do to get their next opportunity. I'm going to be blunt and I'm going to be honest. Some of people in certain circles may not like to hear what I have to say, but I'm going to say it because it's the reality and that's just my nature. You know, I titled this book, and generally when I present to people face to face, I ask people what a bare knuckle fight means to them. And a lot of people say, oh, you know, bloody, old school. For me, the reason I titled it this is that there are no rules. And I think a lot of people in the job search world today believe that there are these certain set of restrictions and rules that you have to follow. Make no mistake, I'm not talking about doing things that are unethical or illegal by any stretch of anybody's imagination. We're going to talk a little bit about why searching for a job is a sales job, and that's the way I was brought up. I've been dialing the phone since I'm 18 years old, so that goes back now to a very long time for me. In one way or another, I've been selling myself and my product. And you know, today in the position that I'm in, I get a unique opportunity, you know, to see 67 offices, 67 or so offices, many of which on a day-to-day basis call us here at our corporate offices here in New York City to discuss certain situations regarding their clients, which are the employers, and their candidates, the job seekers, and we get a very good perspective on the market today. We track tons of statistics across all of the offices and recruiters and all the placements we make. And again, these trends give us good insight to be able to share with you what some of the pitfalls are in searching for a job today. I'm going to kick it off by talking a little bit about why the internet is killing your job search in many ways, shapes, or forms. And we're going to talk about how to use it as a tool and not a crutch. I mentioned this a few minutes ago. We're going to talk about the fact, whether that makes you happy or not, the fact is, and whatever discipline and profession you're in, looking for a job is a sales job. We want to talk a little bit, everybody talks about networking. Most networking should actually be categorized as not working, and we'll differentiate between the two. This is where I get into some trouble. Unfortunately, human resources doesn't really fancy the way that I like to treat the job search. But again, I believe before you sign an offer letter or a confidentiality agreement or start working for a company, there are no rules. I'm going to talk about my process. When I say my process, I'm referring to what I do with a job seeker and how I market them to my clients. That process should give you some insight as to what you can do for yourself and how you can be your own recruiter. Now, we're also going to dive a little bit into, after you do a great job of selling yourself and you get that interview, we're going to talk about some unique interview tips and techniques. And I'm not talking about shine your shoes and wear a clean shirt and a new tie. We're talking about some of the important sort of soft traits that companies are looking for in this day and age. We'll then take your questions. We're going to have to be kind of sensitive on time. I know we have a lot of people on the call. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible, but I will be able to follow up with you after the call if need be. So let's get started. I always like to share quotes. This one, based on the timing of this call and some recent happenings across the pond, if you will, this is very timely. Winston Churchill once said, "Continuous effort, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking our potential." I stand by that because I don't necessarily fancy myself strong or intelligent, but I do believe that I focus on continuous effort and professional persistence. That means each day you're going to run into roadblocks, and each day you've got to pick yourself up and look past those roadblocks and start all over again. Another one, I was fortunate enough to work for a gentleman by the name of Bob Montgomery at careerbuilder.com. Bob was one of the most quotable sales leaders I've ever worked for. He was the CEO at the time, and he said that there are two ways to be successful in this world, or there are two ways to make money in this world. The first one is to be really good at something. And I'm talking about, like, you know, Michael Jordan really good at something. But what I subscribe to, and what I would encourage you all to subscribe to, is the second way. and that's to do things that other people aren't willing to do. And most of what I'm going to teach you today, unfortunately, many of you on the call are not going to heed my advice because they're going to be uncomfortable. But what I always tell people is, would you rather be uncomfortable and unemployed, or would you rather be uncomfortable doing things that are going to help you to get your next job? So that's what I want you to consider. So the internet, guys, I've worked, again, 7 years. I worked for a precursor to Career Builder called Headhunter.net. I go back to the year 2000. That was just 16 years ago. I was showing people at what used to be called GTE, now Verizon, how they can actually post jobs and get resumes via email, and it was spectacular to them. They were blown away. 16 short years later, it's become commonplace, and the internet has had a major impact on searching for jobs. Certain businesses, it hasn't had as much of an impact, but searching for jobs used to be done through recruiters, and the only way to really advertise was in the Sunday classifieds in your local market. Today, if a company posts a job, think of the impact. That job is viewable all over the world. The internet has empowered human resources to feel like they can actually go and do something to try to recruit. Because human resources folks and talent acquisition folks within companies, by and large, don't pick up the phone and recruit people. They use the internet to search and post and make matches, and today there's all sorts of artificial intelligence and algorithms that are supposed to match companies to candidates. But I'll be honest with you, it makes a lot of people feel like they are doing something. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, from what I've known, companies are not very good at using the internet to recruit members of their company. Everybody always tells me, I've applied to 500 jobs and it's a black hole. The example I always give, do you know how many times this has happened to us? Whether it's me here in New York or any of our recruiters around the country, we present a candidate's resume to a client, maybe a hiring manager. The hiring manager says, I want to interview that person. Looks like a great resume. They go talk to the human resources person in charge of the search, and they say, oh, I already have that resume. Well, why didn't you give that resume to me? So that gives you an indication that applying to a job is a black hole. It goes onto somebody's desk that can't necessarily make a decision. Today, what's happened with the internet is that companies are not posting a lot of their important openings because they don't want to be inundated by resumes. It is important to look at the internet as a tool and not a crutch. And there are better ways to use it. Another tool, like a chainsaw, some people are better at using it than others, just like the internet. Use it to your advantage. Don't expect the internet to do the work for you. I told you, I think this is now the third time, searching for a job is a sales job. We need to focus on using that thing on your desk that a lot of people don't use anymore, called the telephone. Call me a traditionalist, you name it. I've been in the office since 7:05 this morning making phone calls because that's when I get executives on the phone. And if I don't get them on the phone and I get their voicemail, I'll tell you it is significantly better than leaving a voicemail on their secretary's voicemail or on the general mailbox at a company. So worst comes to worst, it is my voice on their voicemail. We call managers early and late. You need to be, I always tell recruiters to be intuitive. And when I say I tell recruiters, that means I'm telling you as job seekers to be intuitive about when they make their phone calls. Most salespeople and most recruiters, when it hits 9 a.m. their time, they start making phone calls. I prefer to put my feet up on the desk, drink a cup of coffee, and read the newspaper at 9 a.m., feeling good that I've made my phone calls from 7:15 to 9 a.m. Eastern. Market yourself. Have a script. It is critical that you know exactly what you're going to say. You know, many networking groups say, oh, you have to have a 30-second elevator pitch, your script has to be a lot tighter than a 30-second elevator pitch, especially for a voicemail. And I would encourage people, when you find someone that, an executive at a company that you want to talk to, and we're going to talk a little bit about working backwards, it is critical that you leave a compelling voicemail, something along the lines of, "Hi, this is Jeff Herzog. I'm actually a director of finance. I saw you on LinkedIn and had a very quick question for you. Was hoping you can point me in the right direction. Please feel free to give me a quick call back at 212-302-1000. Again, that number, 212-302-1000. When that person calls you back, you need to talk to that person, give your 15-second elevator pitch. "Oh, hi, thanks so much for giving me a call back. I appreciate it. As I mentioned, I'm a director of finance. I got my master's degree from NYU in 1994. I have an undergrad degree from Binghamton, and I have worked for several multinational companies, have been extremely effective at achieving XYZ, whatever the case may be for you. Was hoping you might be able to tell me who you know that might be interested in talking to me about potentially coming to work for them." And then being quiet. Okay? You need to network on the phone. I had a friend many years ago who lost his job at a very difficult time. Just bought a new house, had a couple of kids, and I shared with him my techniques. And what did he say to me? He said, "Jeff, I'm afraid that I'm bothering people." Again, there's the discomfort that I talk about. What's worse, the discomfort of potentially thinking you're bothering somebody, or the discomfort of not having any prospects to get a new job? You are not bothering anybody. And worse comes to worse, someone hangs up on you, so what? Move on. It is critical that you feel that. Planning. We have to do a lot of research to find the people that you want to call. And I'm going to show you in a minute what it looks like on LinkedIn to try to find some people with the advanced search functionality. Talk a minute about strategic selling. Great trainers, sales trainers called Miller and Hyman. Miller Hyman has written tons of books. They do tons of sales training. And they talk about buying influences at a company and who you're calling. And remember to always, always follow up. You leave a voicemail today, which is Wednesday. If you don't hear back, leave another voicemail on Friday. If you don't hear back after that second voicemail, wait 1 week and call that person back, because maybe they were out this week. And then it's going to take them a few days to get back to you. 3 or 4 calls minimum, and don't feel like you're bothering somebody. The only way, I tell people, the only way you're going to stop me from bothering you is by calling me back. So strategic selling, different buying influences, is a template that you can overlay for any company that you're calling on. A coach, the type of people that you're talking about, the person's at a company that you may call is, how can we pull this off? This person can help you with buying influences. It could be a neighbor, it could be a friend, a family member, it could be somebody you used to work with, it could be any number of people. They're not going to be able to say yes to hire you or interview you, but they can help direct you through an organization. The economic buyer is the person who gives the final approval to buy. They're the ones who are actually going to ask, what's my return going to be? How much time is it going to take? And they're not looking to overcomplicate the process. They see the value of talent. And we need to find hiring managers who see and understand the point that their talent within their company is their #1 asset. A technical buyer, which in this case can often be human resources, their job is to screen out. They have to present quantifiable measures. They say cost is a major concern, but they're not someone who can say yes. They can only say no, so why would you want to sell yourself to someone who can only say no? Keep in mind that that is challenging. Lastly, as a user buyer, make judgments about how the service could work. They'll be one to take the blame. Must be easy to explain the benefit to a user buyer. So if you look at this matrix here, a coach could be a secretary or a friend. The economic buyer could be a VP within the department. The technical buyer could be an HR person. And the user buyer could be the direct hiring manager who you would be working for. We like to market candidates 2 levels above what they are. So if you're a manager right now, market yourself to a VP. If you're a director, market yourself to a C-level person. So we talked, unfortunately, everybody says you got to get out and network. I'm going to be the first to tell you, and again, I've been in sales now for, 26 years, something like that, and I hate networking. It is not comfortable. It is not easy. And anybody who tells you that they love it, to be honest with you, I don't know. I think they may be lying. And most of the time, when you look at people who are quote-unquote networking, they're really not working. Be selective with the events you go to. Make sure you go in with a purpose. Don't expect, and this is probably the most critical point, do not expect the networking event or anybody else to do the job for you. You have to make it happen. Focus on high-value contacts. You can always, or generally speaking, especially if there's a fee to go to a networking event, call the organizer and find out who's going to be there, who are the speakers, who are people of influence that you can try to hunt down and talk to directly. One-on-one time is key. Everybody likes to be in a group because it's a lot easier. Keep in mind, one-on-one time is something you have to make an effort to accomplish, but it's very, very important. Follow up. Don't expect to give out a business card and to get a call back. Make sure you ask for business cards, phone numbers, emails, whatever it is you're going to share. Can I send you an invite on LinkedIn, whatever the case may be, follow up afterwards. We'll talk a little bit about LinkedIn style networking. That's really what I do. I spend a lot of my time doing. And partner with specific recruiters and plan on giving more than you get. What you don't want to do is think that you're doing a recruiter a favor by sending them several resumes of your friends. That's not necessarily a good thing to do. What is a good thing to do is to make sure that you are smart with resumes of people that you share with recruiters. Make sure that they're top quality, top-notch individuals that you know of well. Don't just pass along resumes. That doesn't do anybody any good. And to be honest with you, it can make a potential recruiter potentially turn them off from wanting to continue to talk to you. You have to understand, recruiters work on behalf of their corporate clients who pay them, and they need to be very selective with the candidates that they put in front of them. So keep that in mind. It's a blunt reality. I told you I'll be blunt, but it is my industry, but it's important for you to realize that. So for those of you who haven't seen or used the LinkedIn Advanced Search, if you're in finance, let's say for argument's sake, you click on the Advanced Search tab, you put in some keywords, potential title, maybe a location within 50 miles of my zip code here, of the relationships that I want it to be everybody, first, second, group, third, you name it. Maybe I went to NYU like I mentioned earlier, so my pitch, my script resonates really well with other people who went to NYU. And I'm in the pharmaceutical industry perhaps, or my background is in pharmaceuticals, so I can narrow down my search. We all know LinkedIn has completely turned the job search market upside down. Use it to your advantage. Now what do? After this, I find the company's phone number and I call them. I send them a LinkedIn invite with a quick note. For those of you who don't know, when you send a connection, you can actually add in a quick note. Hey, I left you a voicemail earlier today. I'm Director of Finance. Was hoping you and I can catch up real quickly. Please let me know a good time to give you a call. And it's not, please call me. I get resumes all the time from people who say, please call me. No. Pick up the phone and call me. Can I tell you, I hired a recruiter not too long ago. She was looking to change industry. She applied to my job. 3 days later, after the application, I get a phone call, and she said, hi, my name is is Joan Kaufman, and I applied to your job, and if I were you, my resume would be in the do not call pile. I said, why is that? And she said, because I've been in a completely different industry that has nothing to do with recruiting, but I've made the decision that it is my future, and I want to come talk to you. And I hired her a week later. She was the only one out of 76 applications that picked up the phone and called me. And by the way, I only called 4 of the 76 resumes, and none of them were as good as she was. So keep that in mind. Whether you're in sales, whether you're in finance, quality, supply chain, HR, it doesn't matter. You need to pick up the phone. People will tell you, oh, you can't do that. You have to send an email. It's a lot easier. These are the rules that I'm talking about. There are no rules. And these are also the things that you need to do that other people aren't willing to do. Make a plan of the people you want to call. Don't research one person and then call one person. Research 15 phone calls and then make those calls in succession. You get momentum. Here in the recruiting business, we call it call blocks. Get up early, get dressed, get showered, call people at 7:30 in the morning. Guys, I can't express that enough. Or if you try somebody twice at 7:30 and you leave voicemails, put it off until 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. Maybe they're later. But the executives you want to talk to are in the office. To touch real quickly on another topic, and one other thing, the reason I talk and encourage people or implore people to call early or call late is because the receptionist isn't there. You're probably going to get an automated dialer if you call the main number. You may even luck out and they'll say, when you want to call Joe Smith, they'll say Joe Smith at extension 4668. Now you can call them directly. So critical to be able to get in before the receptionist or the secretaries do. So I mentioned earlier, this is a somewhat controversial part of people who are concerned about my process. Human Resources doesn't love it. But I met with, years ago, I took him out to a really nice steak dinner, the VP of recruitment for Motorola. And this is going back to like 2002. He said, I don't understand why companies continue to bake talent acquisition into human resources. He says talent acquisition is a sales job. Human resources is what happens after you're hired. Keep that in mind. A good client of mine has coined, he actually has a blog, it says recruitment is a sloppy art. It is never exactly the same. We might have 2 exactly the same jobs, place 2 people, but what winds up happening is 2 very different processes to get there. So what HR and recruitment try to do is they add science to an otherwise sloppy art. It is not easy to do. And what they try to do is reduce the candidates down to a 65 megabit PDF to compare one to the other. That's the plane you're on when your resume is being compared to somebody else's, as opposed to picking up the phone and calling a hiring manager and saying, who do you know that might be interested in talking to me? HR doesn't often understand the business need or the real budget. They just heard somewhere along the lines that we need to cut back on spending. Often generalists, even in talent acquisition. It used to be, before there was such thing as talent acquisition, HR generalists would have everything from employee relations to benefits to, you name it, team building. And then, oh yeah, they had recruitment, and that's what generally fell to the bottom. Today, talent acquisition representatives often have, they're generalists in the fact that they're asked to recruit on all different types of jobs, from IT to finance to HR to quality to pickers and packers in a manufacturing plant. Keep in mind that that's an extremely large challenge for those folks, where recruiters are often specialists, and you yourself, by making phone calls to specific hiring managers in your industry and discipline, can streamline the process. By and large, HR folks don't pick up their phone and hide behind email. It's just something I've seen. You also want to be careful of some career counselors and certain outplacement groups giving you very soft information about how to go about your job search. Don't get me wrong, great services, and I don't want to indict the entire industry by any means. What's important is that you don't focus on, and this goes back to the networking versus not working. The worst thing to do is look at a group, and the old saying, the old adage is misery loves company. If you spend too much of your time with other people who are unemployed in group sessions or networking events, you're not going to get where you need to go. This is an individual sport, and you need to play it hard and aggressively. So some of this we already talked about, but you have to have confidence in what you can bring to a company, energy every day. And if you don't feel good, you don't feel energetic, put the calls off till tomorrow. And be passionate about the results that you can bring to a company. Focus on, see, and this is where you have to think backwards. Most people see a job and then explore the company and then apply to it. What I do is I take a look at the companies in my local area, and then I market myself to hiring managers or market my candidate to hiring managers regardless of if they have a job opening, especially because, like I said earlier, a lot of these companies are not posting their openings. So work backwards. Look at pick 50 companies you'd like to work for and market yourself to those companies. Plan, plan, plan. The old adage here is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Your list every day should be written out. We talked about professional persistence. I had a guy a client who he was a candidate, lived up in Indianapolis, recently moved to a company in Florida, and I saw he's the CFO there now, and it's taken me 4 months of follow-up. A month ago was my last call, and he said, boy, oh boy, you are persistent. I said, I know, that's what I get paid for. Sure enough, last night he emailed me and said, hey, can we talk about an opening that I have coming up this Thursday? I said, sure. That's all it took. Now, that was persistent follow-up. Do I think that at first I was probably bothering him a little bit? No doubt about it. But what's the other option? For me, not having business. In your case, not getting another job opportunity. We talked about having a script a little bit already. And as I always say, I do it for a fee, and you can do it for free. And it costs a lot of money to use us, but you can do it and market yourself for free. So now you've gotten yourself an interview. You're getting prepared for the big day. You've laid out what you want to wear. You know exactly where you're going. You're going to get there early, all those basics. But more importantly, as soon as you walk in that front door, no matter how difficult your job search has been, how you feel like you've been wronged and dragged through the mud, it all goes out the door. You leave that baggage at the door. You need to come across as someone who feels lucky. Lucky to have had the experiences in your life that bring you to this point in time. And you're looking to be a make it happen person versus a let it happen person. No one wants to hear your story about why you were let go, why you were laid off, why there was no opportunity at your company, and anything. You want to listen to yourself and make sure you're never negative nor derogatory about past employers. No company or hiring manager wants to be the subject of your next woe is me story. Make it happen, people. Work hard to create circumstances in their life. Let it happen, people. Let circumstances dictate their life. It is critical, no matter what the true story is, that you become a make it happen person. I was afforded the opportunity to do a lot of different things at my past employer. I'm excited now to bring all the skills and experience that I have to a company like yours. And please, folks, focus on what you can do for the company versus what the company can do for you. I think it was JFK who said something similar. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Ask not what the company can do for you, but what you can do for the company. Balance is important in an interview, guys. The balance, what I mean, is between being confident, but If you become too confident, it becomes arrogant. You want to be assertive, but if you become too assertive, it becomes aggressive, and that has a negative connotation. And you want to be enthusiastic about the opportunity, but don't jump across the desk. People are going to say, oh, why is this guy so excited about this job? Does he have nothing else going on? Is she desperate to get out of where she's at right now? Focus on balance. You never want to be, oh, this is the perfect job for me. I'd be great. Don't use superlatives. Be balanced. I'm excited about the opportunity. I think the skills and experience that I have can really make an impact on your organization, and I'm looking forward to next steps. Be self-aware, folks. Pretend you're hovering somewhere. You know that proverbial sort of, I wish I was a fly on the wall? Think of yourself as a fly on the wall, and the biggest message here is just don't talk too much. Don't go from one topic to the next to the next. Make sure you pause. Make sure you give good eye contact and realize when it's time for you to be quiet and listen. In a good interview, the interviewer generally does more of the talking. One of the owners of our offices actually once told me when he preps candidates, he says, identify the target before you shoot the arrow. And what he means by that is if somebody, and this is a common question, especially for folks who don't know how to interview, they say, so tell me about your background. The answer from you should be, I'd be happy to, where would you like me to begin? Because at least now you get an indication of what it is they're looking for, instead of going back to, well, I graduated college in 1992, and then I went here, and then I went there, and then I did this, and I got fired from here. No. I'd be happy to, where would you like me to begin? And be self-aware. Make sure you're not bouncing your leg. Think about what you would want to see in a candidate across the desk from you. We talked about what it is you can do for them versus what they can do for you. And let me give you a quick example. When someone says, well, what are you looking for in a new opportunity? A lot of people may say, well, I'm looking for an exciting company that can help me to get to the next level. No, I'm looking for a company that I can leverage all my skills and experience and help that organization to reach their goals. That's what you can do for them. Many of you may have heard of STAR, this acronym, as it relates to interviewing. It stands for Situation, Task, Action, and Result. And what it really does is that it should make you remember to use relevant examples to support your answers. Your answer should never be, yes, I've done that. It should be, yes, as a matter of fact, I've done that on several occasions. Let me give you an example. The situation was, the tasks involved were, the action I took, and ultimately the result to the business was. People want to know what you personally have accomplished. I always recommend to people to write down 3 to 4 major accomplishments that they're most proud of prior to going into an interview. That way you can recall them much more quickly than thinking about them in an interview. We all do a lot of research these days, guys. It's pretty easy. The internet's right in front of you. You don't have to go to the library anymore. But keep in mind, what I always say is that information is only as good as how you use it. Nobody wants you to sit there and try to cite a company's financials, and I heard the CEO talk, and it's not a competition to sound smart. Use the information if and when it comes up as a relevant point in the interview. Asking questions. Don't ask closed-ended questions. Ask open-ended questions. Don't ask questions to try to sound smart. My 2 favorite phrases, talk to me about or help me to understand. And my favorite question, and I encourage you to ask it just this way, is what would you hope for me to accomplish in the first 6 months? Not what are you looking for this person to accomplish, or what are the priorities for this job. What would you hope for me to accomplish in the first 6 months? It personalizes it. The person may look down at your resume and say, hey, you know, well, you did this at your last company and we really need help here. And they'll start thinking that you may very well be the right person for the job. And last but not least, make sure to close. Even if you're not 1,000% sure about the job, Mr. Interviewer, I appreciate the time. I'm glad we got a chance to get together. I'm excited about the opportunity. I believe that my skills and experience can help you to reach your goals. What are next steps? Where do we go from here? Make sure to ask that question. That brings me to the end of the presentation now, and Tony, I think you want to pick it back up. We're going to just finish. What does it take to start and succeed? Quite honestly, it's very simple. Spend the rest of the day today planning for your day tomorrow. Make a list of companies, hiring managers, phone numbers. Polish off your marketing script. Tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m., get started making phone calls. And I will leave it at that.
That's terrific, Jeff. Thanks ever so much on behalf of everyone on the call. I am sure everyone has got a ton of useful insights that they're going to be able to go away and really put to use and have a big impact on their job search. So thanks so much for that. I'd love to open up the session now to questions from the audience. So over on the side of the screen, you'll see the question box, and you're able to send through questions that you'd like to have Jeff try and tackle live for you here. I think just to round up, some of the key things that I took from this, and I lecture at a lot of European business schools, Jeff. I don't know if you knew that, but so I meet tons of executives and see firsthand how behind the curve they are in terms of understanding how the job market works today and what they need to be doing to be successful. So really interesting to hear all your points here, and I can totally relate to them all. I think some of the key ones for me all revolve around being more proactive. So, getting on the phone, making sure that you're reaching the right people, making sure that you're not relying on them calling back, being proactive, identifying companies where you think there could be opportunities, and then carving out an opportunity for yourself with that business, whether or not it's advertising positions that you're suited to or not. So loads of really actionable ideas from the call. One other stat that I saw, Jeff, I don't know if you want to comment on this, but I certainly I noticed in the last year stats from the States showing that for the last 35 years, the number of advertised vacancies and the number of people moving into new employment, they moved almost totally in parallel. So whenever you had a jump in advertised vacancies, you'd have a corresponding jump in people in employment, within a matter of weeks. And then over the last 3 years or so, those two charts just completely diverged as more and more companies have started filling positions that they don't ever advertise. So I was really interested to hear you, making that point earlier on in the presentation. In terms of questions we've had come through, there was had one submitted before the call even got underway that was asking for ideas for older workers, if we can call it that, someone in their mid-40s who's starting to find that they're getting a bit of resistance to hiring someone of that kind of age profile. Any particular approaches you've seen, Jeff, that work well in terms of tackling that kind of challenge?
Yeah, and it's an unfortunately prevalent challenge, and nobody wants to talk about it. We all see the job creation numbers and the unemployment numbers, and it doesn't tell the tale of what is truly out there. And unfortunately, there is a pervasive, let's call it, challenge in our country today, here in the U.S., about the perceived ageism. And the advice that I have, and I hope whoever asked that question got a chance to listen to what I said, because when you make a phone call and market yourself to a hiring manager, you're standing out by what you're saying and how you're marketing yourself, and you're not just comparing your resume to somebody who's 20 years younger than you. You need to stand out by the action you take, not just putting your resume side by side with somebody else. Other than that, I don't necessarily know, how better to stand out. You need to act like a professional and show how active you are and how aggressive you are and fearless, and that you are doing something that chances are that person 20 years younger than you is not going to do. So get yourself a meeting and market yourself over the phone. So that's probably the best advice that I can give, Tony.
Thanks for that, Jeff. That's great. An interesting question here that I guess you'd be very well qualified to comment on. In what kind of circumstances would you recommend contacting a recruiter to represent you, is the terminology that's been used?
I mean, I think there are lots of different situations where you can ask someone to represent you, but you need to approach it appropriately and pick up the phone and call somebody. Find someone that is a specialist in your industry so that recruiter has a desire. Because recruiters are, by and large, very myopic. It's what they're working on right now, and you may not fit what they're working on right now. So you need to at least narrow it down to industry and discipline and focus on specialists. Because generalists, I mean, look, we've been accused of being headhunters and flesh peddlers and all sorts of different names. But the fact is you want to narrow it down, pick up the phone, use maybe 2 or 3 recruiters, don't spread yourself too thin, and have a frank conversation with them. That's probably the best I have in that question.
Thanks, Jeff. That's great. Got an interesting one come in. Any advice when you're facing group interviews? So I'm interviewing with 6 individuals serving as the search committee for a CEO position. Any suggestions on how to tackle that kind of group interview situation?
Yeah, it's no question. It's a unique challenge. And then you take it one step further. We've had group video calls that people are doing now. But to answer your question, everybody in the room is of equal stature, whether you know it or not. It is critical that you give everyone due time, good eye contact, and that you're comfortable talking to each and every person. They're doing this for a reason, right? They want to see how you respond to groups. They want to see that you're not focusing on the most important person in the room. They're trying to understand your social skills as well as your ability to handle questions that are fired at you. So it's a matter of being as comfortable as possible. And, that's easier said than done, I understand. But I would focus on making sure when you're speaking, even if one person, let's say the person the second from the right asks the question, they're asking it on behalf of the group. So talk to the group. Don't just focus your answers on one person. That's probably, I think that's the most important thing as it relates to group interviews.
That's great, Jeff. Thanks. I know from the consulting industry that's often used as the final round of interviews, and often it's just so that the people making the hiring decision have all seen the same performance from the candidate, so that when they go into a room and decide is this person right for us or not, they've all seen the same performance rather than having had several different individual interviews that they're then trying to relay that experience to the others who weren't in that room. So yeah, great advice, and as you say, a unique situation. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we had someone asking, I'm a recent graduate with very little experience. How would you recommend I go about marketing myself?
Well, I think just purely the idea that you're picking up the phone, it's funny, I go back to when I was a recent grad looking for a job. You know what my father used to told me that I was supposed to do, and I didn't really love it, but I knew it made me unique. Take my resume. This is when we were allowed in buildings without an ID in Manhattan. He would make me walk into offices and drop off my resume. So in today's world, differentiating yourself by picking up the phone and showing your enthusiasm and your drive and talking about your degree. Hopefully you've had either an internship or office experience. You have to understand if you're bright and aggressive enough to be picking up the phone and calling the right person, right there you're putting yourself on a completely different plane than I'd have to guess 90% of the other recent grads. And that's what's going to differentiate you, is that get up and go. That, look, there's a lot of talk today about millennials and gig economy and contract jobs and things like that. If you're looking for a permanent job and you're a recent college graduate, pick up the phone and call executives and show them and say, I would like to come in and shake your hand and drop off a resume. Please let me know what time would be best. That's going to differentiate you from everybody else. And again, comes back with that discomfort, that thing that most people hate to do, that individual self-selling, but that's what you have to accomplish to get ahead.
That's great, Jeff. Thanks. A couple of other questions here. Compliment to you, a very well focused and delivered presentation. What are you selling? So I wonder if you'd like to just sort of explain to people, Jeff, how your business works and how they can get involved with the business, if that's helpful. And also someone asking if you've got a Twitter account that they can follow up with you on.
Yes. Well, let me start with the second one. My Twitter account is FPC of NYC with no spaces. FPC OF NYC. And you can also follow our parent company, which is Fortune Recruiter, 2 words, and at FPC National. Now, what am I selling? To be honest with you, I do this all over. It gets me introduced to lots of different people for any number of reasons. I appreciate the blunt question. My business really is I look for 3 different types of people: potential candidates for our recruiters, potential clients to work on their jobs, and potential franchisees. We're a franchise organization. What we do is most of the time we take folks who, for one reason or another, want to be out of corporate America. Maybe they are having trouble getting a job. Maybe they just don't want to travel anymore, don't want to relocate. They come to us and we teach them how to turn their experience, knowledge, and contacts into their own recruiting business. And people who, let's say you were a director of supply chain, when they come out now and we teach them how to leverage their experience, they go and place supply chain professionals. So am I selling it? I wouldn't necessarily say I'm selling it right now, but those are the types of people that I look for, those 3 categories.
Thanks, Jeff. Very helpful. And one last interesting question that's come in. One of the challenges I've frequently encountered is that companies hire internally after they've interviewed external candidates. So any suggestions on how you can persuade a hirer to be willing to pay the recruiter fee and to hire that external candidate?
Sounds like it's actually somebody who is a recruiter asking the question. There's no doubt that it is challenging. We are doing a much better job, and we see it all the time. In contingent searches, and for those of you who don't know the difference, there's a contingent search and a retained search. A retained search, company pays you a portion of the fee before you make the placement. A contingent search is that you don't get paid unless you make the placement. What we have been doing a much better job of is getting mutually committed searches, meaning a company is committing to us by paying us a portion of the fee up front. Doesn't have to be a full retainer or anything of the sort. Perhaps it's an engagement fee. And then they are more committed by writing us a check up front to hiring our candidates, because they know the money has already, for the most part, been spent. Otherwise, it's extremely challenging in a contingent environment to persuade somebody unless your candidate is markedly better. And that's what I'd have to express to you. Go out and find a candidate that's better than their internal candidate, or someone who's so good that they have to create another opportunity for them. So I hope that answered that question. It was a little bit of a different angle.
Great feedback, Jeff. And one other question that's come in is, any insights for people who want to work in a country where they're going to require some kind of visa sponsorship, employment sponsorship? Any thoughts around how they should go about tackling that situation?
Again, we want to make it, it's the same and similar answer as to what I had said earlier about the age issue, is that when you pick up the phone and make a phone call, nobody knows that that's the case. You've got to sell yourself on your skills and your experience and the impact you can make on a company. And then on the back end, if they're interested, hopefully it's compelling enough information that they'll make the decision to sponsor a visa. So everything that I do, and as simplistic as it may sound, folks, comes down to picking up the phone, and you said it right in your recap, Tony, being proactive versus reactive. And when you market yourself to a hiring manager and get them excited about the skills and experience that you can bring to their team, it's amazing what people are able to accomplish on your behalf. I think that probably rounds it out, Tony. I think that brings us right to about an hour.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you've had a ton of people using the question box, Jeff, just to feedback how valuable they found this session, how much they've learned from it. So on behalf of all of the attendees, thanks ever so much for your time. And we'll be putting together a recording of this and sending that out, because I know a lot of people are going to want to review and recap what's been covered here. So thanks ever so much for your time, and have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.